happy Friday. I'm so happy it's Friday. But despite the positive tone of our past two podcasts, realistically, the country's still going to shit under the current Biden-Harris administration, which frankly, I'm not even sure why we're calling it that anymore. I mean, Biden's been on vacation since his utterly sad appearance at the DNC last Monday. First, he spent a week at a billionaire donor's 8,000-acre estate in Santa Ynez, California, and now he's at his beach home in Delaware, where he's been for the past few days. So it's been almost 2 weeks where he hasn't been at the White House. And then we've got Kamala, who's doing absolutely nothing in a VP capacity as usual. So it's really back to the question of who's running the country. And we still have no fucking clue. But while Biden and Kamala are MIA in the White House, we still have that pesky little problem of the border crisis and the ensuing migrant issues that just don't seem to be going away. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And we are going to start with the shit show that is always California.
Yeah, that pesky little border crisis, it's just always looming. Well, first of all, sorry about my voice. I'm super sick, so I know it's annoying, but just bear with me. I want to talk about the New York Post reporting on something crazy going on in California. So, a group of 20 illegal migrants were walking in the middle of Highway 94 and stopping traffic so that they could try and enter a school bus of elementary school students that was stopped at a bus stop. And this was according to a letter that was sent by the school superintendent to the parents. And get this, Sarah, this was the second time that this has happened in the Jamal Dulzura Union School District. So I guess last Tuesday, there was a separate incident where three men tried entering a school bus that was stopped at one of the bus stops. And so the superintendent's letter to the parents said, quote, "For the safety of students and bus drivers, buses will bypass stops if there are illegal immigrants nearby and head directly to the next stop on the route." And she added, "Please stay vigilant. And if the bus drives by, please follow the bus to pick up your child at the next stop." What? Like, as a parent, this is insane. What is the point of sending your kid on the bus if they can't even get them home safely? Like, if you're going to be following the bus around, you might as well just pick up your kid from school. I mean, this is terrifying. Like, just imagine it's no longer safe in California to send your child to school on a school bus. How insane is that? And just like you said, where's Kamala? She's always talking about how much she loves yellow school buses. Maybe she can help with this. Oh, wait, she's the one that let millions of illegals come through the open border. So she doesn't care. Isn't that crazy?
That's insane. And if I had kids and I lived in California, they would be fucking homeschooled. I mean, I wouldn't live in
Yeah.
California, but if for some reason I had to, I wouldn't be sending them on the bus or to any California school. But it's like, okay, it's not just the millions of illegal migrants that are, flooding through the country in California, but also unprecedented amounts of drugs. So last Friday, Border Patrol in San Diego at the Otay Mesa commercial facility discovered 360 pounds of fentanyl and cocaine hidden in a flatbed trailer. And reportedly, this is like their largest bust of this fiscal year, which started last October. So in almost a year. And then I was reading in Just the News that during the month of July alone, at the San Ysidro port of entry, also in San Diego, Border Patrol agents seized over almost 2,700 pounds of narcotics in 50 different incidents. According to a press release from Border Patrol, this included 173 pounds of fentanyl, 169 pounds of cocaine, 18 pounds of heroin, and over 2,266 pounds of meth. And again, this is just at the California border in fucking San Diego. And then another insane thing happening in California is a bill passed by the state legislature on Wednesday called AB 1840 And what this bill does is it will allow illegal migrants with Social Security or taxpayer ID numbers to qualify for a program called the California Dream for All. And what this program does is it gives first time home buyers up to $150,000 with no down payment, and they only have to pay interest if they sell the property. So the bill hasn't completely passed yet. It's sitting on Newsom's desk, and reportedly, he's declined to comment on whether or not he's going to sign it, but he's going to have to make a decision by September 30th. And if this bill does go into effect, it will give California yet another notch in the state's belt of stupidity of firsts, as being the first state in the nation to offer down payment assistance to illegal migrant homebuyers. As reported by the New York Post, California Republican leaders are pointing out the obvious. Assemblyman Kate Sanchez posted on X, 1 million Californians live in deep poverty and 180,000 are homeless. This is an unbelievable betrayal to the citizens of this state. California Senate Minority Leader Brian Jones commented and said many Californians, some of whom have been here for generations, can't afford to buy a house in their state thanks to Democrats' unstable economic policies. Every dollar that goes to an illegal migrant is one less dollar available to legal residents, including veterans, teachers, and families. And then California Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher said, I didn't know it was possible to make the border crisis and the housing crisis worse with just one vote, but Democrats found a way. Giving taxpayer-funded housing subsidies to illegal migrants will drive costs even higher and encourage more chaos at the border. This is crazy and it needs to stop. Yeah, Stephanie, it sure is crazy, but then again, this is California.
Yeah, Kamala's home state. It's absolutely
Sadly
insane.
mine.
Yeah, and like it's crazy. It's like these people broke the law and came here illegally, and we are giving them the farm. Like, meanwhile, most Americans in their 20s can't afford a house and have to live with their parents or multiple roommates. Like, it's so crazy. And speaking of crazy policies, remember how you mentioned Kamala's like first time homebuyer policy if she gets elected? Well, it turns out that it's not really for first time homebuyers. It's for first generation homebuyers, meaning if anyone, your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents, anyone in your family has purchased a home, you don't qualify. So once again, Tara, doesn't this sound like a policy that's been curated only for illegal migrants that will qualify for it? Like
Yep.
it's ridiculous. And then remember last week we were talking about the Venezuelan prison gang that took over that Colorado apartment complex. Well, the same exact gang stormed another apartment building in New Footage, Colorado, and they just like started beating down people's doors, demanding rent payments from renters in exchange for protection. And this gang is also tied to numerous crimes, including sex trafficking all across the US. And Tara, like, I wish we could play the video for the podcast listeners because it's going around TikTok and it's really scary. It's like this group of guys and they look young, like, they look like almost like teenagers, early 20s. And there's a whole gang of them and they're just beating down people's doors and like taking them over. Like, these people have no choice but to pay them. And it's just really sad that this is happening, and apparently the authorities aren't really doing anything at this point.
Well, that's because according to the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, gangs aren't taking over apartment buildings. Like, forget the video evidence that literally shows a group of like heavily armed young men with rifles and handguns banging on doors in this apartment complex demanding rent payments. But that's not a gang takeover. According to Polis, it's just a figment of council member Danielle Jurinsky's imagination because she posted about it on X. And then, even when he was confronted with video evidence, he didn't comment, but his office said that the governor, quote, really hopes that the city council members in charge stop trashing their own city when they're supposed to keep it safe. Like, what the fuck?
Gaslighting 101. That is
Completely.
like left and right from the Democrats.
100%. And like, how is the Biden Harris admin dealing with the impact of the open border crisis that they created that's wreaking havoc across the country? Well, obviously not by effectively enforcing the border, of course, but by just throwing more money at the problem. So, the Independent Journal Review reported on Wednesday that the DHS is going to be handing out more than $380 million through FEMA's Shelter and Services Program to communities across the country that are currently providing housing, food, clothing, and medical care to the hundreds of thousands of illegal migrants that have been released from federal custody and that are being taken care of with our American taxpayer dollars while they wait for their immigration court proceedings, which we know can take up to years. So I guess we're just going to continue to pay for shelter and food and housing and care for these people indefinitely. And then this is in addition to the nearly 260 million that the DHS gave to this program back in April. And that's in addition to over 780 million that they gave in fiscal year 2023. And the Los Angeles Times reported this morning that 21.8 million of that is going to the city of Los Angeles. So apparently that, significant decline in border crossings last month that the DHS was so proud of, like, I'm sorry, that doesn't mean shit because we're still paying millions and millions of dollars to take care of illegal migrants while we don't do anything to take care of our own legal citizens.
Yeah, and this is like putting a band-aid on the problem because what happens when that money runs out and they're not in the shelter or the hotel anymore? They're taking over apartment complexes, they're raiding gun stores. Like it's so ridiculous that people actually are still doing this and we're all just going along with it. And so there was actually a study from the Federation of American Immigration Reform, or FAIR, and it was last year they found that $150 billion of taxpayer funds went to pay for illegals, with most of the money coming from state and local governments. So, according to the New York Post, Massachusetts is in hot water because of this. Republican leaders say that there is a $1 billion hole in state coffers. And so they're accusing the Democrat controlled government of quietly siphoning off tax dollars to deal with the migrant crisis. Like, Tara, this is a big deal. They fucking stole $1 billion. Like, it's insane. And this is one state. And so the state's Republican Party just submitted a Freedom of Information request demanding Governor Maura Healey to release the full budget for migrants because they say that she's been hiding the true numbers. And so the party's Amy Carnevale told Fox News, quote, "The Healy Driscoll administration has shrouded nearly $1 billion spent in secrecy, leaving Massachusetts residents in the dark. They have withheld critical information on 600 incidents involving police, fire, and EMT, blocking journalists at every turn. The administration has obstructed the flow of information to the public." End quote. That just seems to be the typical of like Democrats now. They're not letting real journalists in. And I'm sorry, like, I don't care what this money is going to, whether it's migrants or something else. You can't just steal $1 billion. These people should be in prison. And
Yeah.
so, FAIR estimates the 2023 costs were actually closer to $3 billion for the state of Massachusetts. And like, this is one state. Like, you already talked about New York last week. Like, how many other states are spending billions? And we also discussed how illegals account for like 25% of our nation's deficit. And I just want to point out this is a problem that is directly created by the Biden Harris administration. They
Well,
created this.
yeah. And you know what else they're doing? I think this just got announced a couple days ago, but the Biden Harris admin is restarting their immigration program that they had suspended for a while. It's a program that allows migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela to come to the United States. And they suspended it earlier in the month because there were like concerns about fraud among, sponsors, fraud with the sponsors. But now they're like instituting some kind of, new rigorous vetting procedure. So they're going to restart the program again. So rather than actually doing anything about the border, we're just going to keep letting more people in.
And these are the places where the gangs are coming from,
Right.
because they're like, "Oh, you're taking people from these countries. Great. We're going to empty our prisons." Like, that's who we're getting. We're not getting like their best and brightest. We're getting their fucking prisoners. Like, it's just so out of control. And then I heard Kamala, I think it was at the DNC, and she's talking about how, you know, um, we need to have like a real immigration system where people can come here and there should be a process. There is a process. There's a process that's been here forever. That's how my family came here. It's how we all got
Mhm.
here. Like, I love how they just pretend that there's either an open border or no one's allowed to come in. Like, no, we have a process. But unfortunately, the people that want to come here legally have to wait even longer because we're letting all these illegals come in and take up all the resources.
I know
Anyhow,
I know this is gonna sound so stupid, but I have been watching that horrible show, 90 Day Fiance, for many years. And every time we talk about the border, I always think about that show where like some of these people are waiting 4, 5, 6 years to get their
mhm,
spouse to be able to legally come over into the United States. And
yeah,
yet it's like, why bother? The border's right open. Like, why even go through this
right.
process? Just have them walk right in.
Why do we even bother? Like, why am I paying for health insurance? I
Right.
should just take a flight to Mexico and then walk over. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like my grandma had to leave her children in Germany and come here and get established and build a life so she could bring her kids. Like, and then this happens and it's just like a slap in the face to all these immigrants that worked so freaking hard to become citizens. And so, yeah, you're going to love this. I'm sure you've already heard, but now Kamala is saying that she's going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on a border wall, a fucking border wall. Really? Like the border wall that you refused to finish, even though all the parts had already been paid for, and your administration decided that they should spend more money not finishing the wall than actually finishing it. Like, it's absolutely insane, but that is what she is sticking with. So, Chameleon Kamala knows how unpopular the open border is. And so now she's like flat out stealing another one of Trump's policies. Like, this is just, it's no one would believe this, but it's like it's actually happening. Like, it's just blowing my mind. I feel like we're an upside down world. But like, we're talking about a woman who called Trump's wall un-American. Like she's on video saying it's un-American to build a border wall. And now, oh, she's gonna fix the border crisis. She's gonna build a wall. Like it's her idea. Tara, like, please tell me people are not stupid enough to fall for this shit.
Well, unfortunately, I believe a lot of people are. And like, what is this? Like the third of Trump's policies that she's suddenly done a
Yeah,
180 on and now is like claiming that it's her policy. It's like literally pandering. Her campaign will say anything to get voters at this point. And sadly, I think a lot of people are going to believe the lies and hypocrisy. I know people in my family are already
mine too.
believing it. Yeah. But I want to play this clip from Fox and Friends yesterday, where a New Mexico rancher was being interviewed and asked what he thought about Kamala's sudden flip with her border policies. And in addition to calling Trump's wall un-American, there is another phrase that Kamala has used frequently.
Kamala Harris just taking her tougher stance on the border to a whole new level, with Axios now reporting she supports building the border wall. But Americans don't know what to believe after Harris repeatedly insulted the idea in the past. Watch. On the subject of transnational gangs, let's be perfectly clear. The president's medieval vanity project is not going to stop them. And he has held up the United States government and its workers around his vanity project called a wall. This president's medieval vanity project called a wall. And for him, he talks about that wall. He wants everyone to be preoccupied with his multi-billion dollar vanity project. This issue is about a vanity project for this president. Right. Russell Johnson is a New Mexico rancher and has unused border wall material sitting on his family's ranch, and he joins me now. Russell, what do ranchers like you think of this flip-flop, especially in light of the fact that you in particular have border materials that she is now in charge of as border czar, just sitting on your land being unused?
Well, good morning, Todd. It's ironic, I see it constantly from a state election to a federal election. These Democrats, as we start getting closer to an election, they start sounding more and more like Republicans. And what's confusing to me is there's two concepts that this administration especially has a hard time dealing with and implementing. It's really easy to tell the truth and do the right thing. And when it comes to this border situation, this administration has been in charge for the past 3.5 years, and this material's been there for more than 4 years. Why haven't they installed it?
Despite this flip-flop, do your fellow ranchers trust that Kamala Harris and an administration under her would ultimately build the wall, or is she just pandering for votes with something she has no intention of ultimately following through on?
She's absolutely pandering for votes. And I think especially these border communities, we know the truth behind her motives here because, like I say, she's been in charge. She's been the border czar for the past 3.5 years. And we've seen no action on the border other than this administration stopping any kind of progress. It's actually going to bring some safety and security to this nation.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, for you fine folks there, it's insulting because you're living this. We're all a border state, I understand that, but you're living this experience on a day in and day out basis, 24 hours a day. To have this flip-flop, I don't know. I don't understand how she gets any votes in any of those border states from folks like you, but we'll see. Russell Johnson, thanks for your time.
It's insane. Like there is video,
Right?
but she's just
Yeah.
banking on most people being too dumb to pay attention. And
Yep.
she knows she can get votes through them. Like it's absolutely insane. Not to mention the hot button topic that I get fired up over, which is child trafficking, which, by the way, like not to critique Trump, but like I feel like he could really go to town on this issue. And I feel like he doesn't give it enough, like, of his energy, because the numbers are astounding. And thankfully, Senator Marsha Blackburn isn't forgetting about the tens of thousands of migrant children that went missing on Kamala's watch. So she just sent a letter to DHS Secretary Mayorkas saying, quote, I write today to express my grave concern regarding a recent Office of Inspector General report that found severe mismanagement with respect to the safety and well-being of unaccompanied minor children. Specifically, on your department's watch, tens of thousands of migrant children are now missing, leaving them highly vulnerable to human trafficking and exploitation. This, unfortunately, is just the latest failure of the Biden-Harris border crisis that continues to unfold. I've inquired for more information from Secretary Becerra to no avail about the unconscionable failure. The American people and families of these hundreds of thousands of children deserve answers about your reckless disregard for the well-being of children in your care and what your department is doing to address these failures, end quote. So this letter comes after the Department of Homeland Security's Inspector General sent a report to Congress finding that over the past 5 years, more than 32,000 unaccompanied migrant children didn't show up for immigration court hearings, and that Immigration and Customs Enforcement couldn't account for the location of those who didn't appear. So I want to point out this is just the number of children that didn't show up to hearings. The problem is migrant children don't even get a hearing date scheduled until quite a while after they've been settled with sponsors. And so, as a previous whistleblower, Tara Rodas, said that we've talked about previously, over 85,000 migrant kids went missing before they ever even had to get a chance to be with a sponsor and like get a hearing. And so this number is on top of that number. And so Tara, like that tells me the number of children being trafficked is like way larger than we even imagined previously.
Yeah, you know what? I bet it is. And it's like there's going to come a point where this whole illegal immigration crisis shit show is going to boil over and like some bad shit is going to happen. Either it's going to be a terrorist attack from within our own country or the death of children or something related to finding these fucking children or some other horrible incident. But all we need to do is take a look at what's been happening in Europe to get an idea of how bad it can get. And we have talked about the anti-immigrant riots in the UK and Ireland, similar issues in France and Germany. And it's like all it's going to take is for one incident to happen here where the people get fed up enough with illegals being given accommodations and resources that Americans aren't being given, and the dam is going to break because it is just not sustainable to keep going like this. And at this point, even if the border was completely shut down tomorrow, the damage has been done. It's been 4 years of a constant flow of known terrorists and criminals and drugs and child trafficking, all being allowed to infiltrate our country. And now it's just a matter of time before something really dangerous happens. And the bottom line is Kamala's had the opportunity to do something about it the entire time, and she hasn't done a fucking thing. So anyone who's buying the bullshit that she suddenly cares about the border, like, wake the fuck up. She doesn't give a shit about the border. She only cares about votes and continuing to bullshit the American people, which is exactly what she did when she finally sat down with Dana Bash at CNN last night to give her first interview in over 40 days as the Democrat presidential candidate. And like, Stephanie, do we even want to talk about this?
Not really, because she's so cringy and it was so uneventful. And like the same gaslighting that we have seen over and over again from this administration. So, first of all, she only agreed to do the interview if she could bring her emotional support VP, Tim Waltz. So, apparently, her team was worried that she'd mess it up and like sent him along for reinforcement. She was clearly like super nervous and you could see it all over her face. And my question is, when she sits down with Putin to talk about nuclear war, is she going to bring her emotional support VP? Like, is she going to be able to have an interview with him?
Well, do you think she's going to sit down with Putin? Because Biden's been in office for 4 years and he's never even made a phone call, much less sat down with him.
She'll blow him off just like she did with Netanyahu. Yeah, and like the other thing is she only agreed to do a pre-recorded interview. So it's ridiculous. Like we have no idea what's been edited. If she did make a word salad or misspeak, like we're never going to know about it because CNN's going to edit that out. So we don't really know how it actually went. We just got the recording. So I'm going to play a clip from Jesse Waters because he highlights the gaslighting when Kamala is asked why she's done a 180 on pretty much everything.
After a month running scared, Kamala did an interview and brought her babysitter.
How should voters look at some of the changes that you've made, that you've explained some of here in your policy? Is it because you have more experience now and you've learned more about the information? Is it because you were running for president in a Democratic primary? And should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed. You mentioned the Green New Deal. I have always believed, and I have worked on it, that the climate crisis is real, that it is an urgent matter to which we should apply metrics that include holding ourselves to deadlines around time. We did that with the Inflation Reduction Act. We have set goals for the United States of America and by extension, the globe around when we should meet certain standards for reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. As an example, that value has not changed. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed. I spent 2 terms as the Attorney General of California prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, violations of American laws regarding the illegal passage of guns, drugs, and human beings across our border. My values have not changed.
CNN asked Kamala, why didn't you flip-flop on everything? And she said, no, I didn't. CNN even gave her options. Maybe it was because of this. Maybe it was because of that. Hint, hint. No. Kamala denied changing her position on everything, even though her campaign spent the last month saying she changed her position on everything. She just said, I'm the same California socialist who ran for president as the most liberal member of the Senate. Her values haven't changed. First, she said she prosecuted human beings crossing the border. Then when she was running for president, she said it's not illegal to cross the border. Then when she was the border czar, she didn't prosecute anybody crossing the border. And now that she's running for president, she wants to build a wall. And her values haven't changed. Okay. Look, this is what she said on the Green New Deal. She sponsored a bill so you won't be able to buy a gas-powered car in 20 years. And then her campaign says she doesn't believe that anymore, even though that's what she did in the Biden administration. Then she makes a huge mistake. and admits the Inflation Reduction Act was really just the Green New Deal.
Yeah, so just ridiculous. And the whole time she was talking, she kept looking down. Like, just interview 101 basics. Like, she can't even do that.
I guarantee, like, she knew the questions beforehand. Like, there's no way she answered any of that off the cuff.
No.
Like, this was a sham interview. It was totally pre-planned, edited, and she knew all the questions beforehand. And I just don't buy any of it. It's all bullshit.
Yeah, and now with the debate, like, they're almost like leaving room to back out again because like Trump's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'll agree to whatever the terms are the same, fine. And then her team is like, well, we didn't actually agree to the terms yet. And it's like, oh my God, like she can't even talk to the people. Like, your whole job as a politician is to be able to talk eloquently and persuade people. And she can't do that. She cannot go off script. And when she kept looking down, I'm like, is she reading a script? Like, I didn't see paper on the desk, but like literally it looked like she kept looking down to read a script. And I'm like, this is so, like, as a politician, a career-long politician, she should know how to at least conduct a pre-recorded interview and look at the interviewer in the eyes.
She was probably like mic'd up, and maybe that's like her tell, like listening to what was going on, in the mic in her
Yeah.
ear. Maybe she looks down.
But that's what I think everyone should imagine. Like, imagine that was Putin in that seat. She, like, you could see she was nervous. She can't hold her shit together. Like, this woman cannot lead the country. She is a mess and she's a
And
liar.
she gives no real answers.
Yeah.
Like, I will give Dana, whatever, however you pronounce her name, I will give her credit, because at one point she asks, like, okay, people are saying, like, you've had the last 3.5 years to do XYZ, and what's your response to that? And she gave some rambling response that, like, didn't even answer the fucking question
Right.
and blamed everything on COVID and Trump.
Yeah. And she's talking about when she was attorney general. It's like,
Yeah.
you were vice president. You were the second in command. You were put in charge of the border, but you're going to bring up what you did as attorney general. Like, none of it makes sense. And it's just, they just deflect. And that's what we're getting. And so, again, she's hoping that between them cheating and stupid people that don't pay attention and have their head in the sand and just want to vote for her because she's a woman, they think that's going to be enough. And hell, it was
Or a
enough for
Democrat.
Biden to hide in the basement. So why not her do it too? Well, anyhow, thank you guys for putting up with my annoying nasally voice. I did my best. At least I didn't lose it completely. But hopefully I will be better by the time Monday rolls around. So thanks for tuning in and have a great day.